We're excited you're here. He's Chris, I'm Eric. Today we're going to chat about stability in the Phoenix metro real estate market.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good stuff, right?
It is good stuff. We're big proponents of it. Now, obviously, we live here. We love life in Arizona.
Right.
We think it's a great place to live, and we think you will too. But from a financial perspective,
Yep.
from an investment, is it a good time to buy? Is it not a good time to buy? Why should I invest there? Do I want to be a homeowner there? There's a lot of factors that play into that.
A lot. There are a lot. And I hear a lot of people on a regular basis talking about, the market's crashing, or, I'm waiting for the market to crash. Because for some people, it has become a little bit unaffordable. Things change in marketplaces.
Yep.
Things never stay the same. And so back in 2020, we were a very, very affordable market to be in. Nationally, we were probably one of the top 5 large cities of most affordable markets to be in. That's not us anymore, but that doesn't mean that we're still not affordable, and it doesn't mean that we're not a great place to be. So, and affordability isn't the only factor in people's decisions about where they should be. I mean, if you're living somewhere that's got a little bit less affordability, but you've got great schools, great education, and great infrastructure, you're paying for that, and that's what you're going to get for it, right?
Part of the package deal.
That's part of the package deal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the other thing that I think is very positive about Arizona is the quality of jobs that were being created.
Yes.
Because a couple decades ago, a lot of the economic drivers in Arizona were related to things like tourism or more volatile industries. And what we're seeing now is emerging industries that have very stable employment bases and very good long-term upside stability.
Yep.
And those are the companies that are locating here. And those are the companies that are expanding and creating jobs here.
Yes, absolutely. And we've talked about it before, and we'll probably keep talking about it. But one of the major industries that is coming into the Phoenix market, has been coming and will continue to come here, is the microchip industry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact is that aside from Taiwan, here over the next couple of years, as those companies continue to finish their build out and continue to fill up their employment and their labor force, Phoenix is going to be one of the largest, if not the other, beyond Taiwan, largest chip manufacturer in the world, which is a fantastic thing, because in today's world, other than toilet paper, chips are probably considered the most valuable commodity.
Pretty essential. Water and microchips.
And right. So that's a major driving force for the valley and what we see going on. And I think it's a major protective force for the fears that a lot of the rest of the country and the world might have in regards to labor and economic resource and stability.
Yeah. Well, we're very much in growth mode as a metro area, and you shared a statistic today that I thought was really exciting and will be interesting in terms of the projections for population growth here. So what does that look like?
Yeah, over the next 10 years, we are going to see over 17% growth in our population. And the big number we're kind of looking at and expecting to see is that the Phoenix metro area is going to have a population of about 6 million people.
Yeah, and that's significant.
That's significant.
Yeah.
So just thinking about what that number means, think about how many homes are going to have to be built.
Right.
Whether they're owned or whether they're rented, right? Somebody's going to own that real estate.
Absolutely.
You know, and so those are things that come into play. Also, think about the jobs that are created for that. It's not just the houses, it's not just the job, but it's the grocery stores, the roads, the infrastructure. When one thing comes, many other things come.
That's true. Yep. And historically, over the last 5 years, Maricopa County has led the nation in in-migration. So the population growth trend has been here for a while.
Yep.
It looks like, based on what you shared, that we're going to just see that continue to accelerate.
Yes.
And it's going to increase pretty substantially over the next 10 years.
Absolutely.
So the next question that everybody's going to ask,
yeah,
what about the water? You live in the desert.
Water?
What about the water?
I could harp on this one for a while.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Do you know much about the water situation?
I know a little bit about it. And the one stat that I always go to that I think is interesting is the consumer of water in Arizona is still agriculture.
Yes.
It's not population.
And most of our agriculture is found on the western side of the state. The eastern side of the state is mostly higher mountains or mining. So it's high ground, can't farm there, and so they mine over there. But a lot of people have concern, and you hear even a lot of national news. In fact, I know people on the other side of the country that have talked to me about news they've seen about water shortage. Sure. And what they're talking about generally is the Colorado River, which there's some valid concerns there.
Yes.
But there are some creative solutions that have come up in the last few years that are going to help us. But what people don't talk a lot about is the fact that on the eastern side of the state, we have a lot of water. There was once a book written called The Cadillac Desert.
Yeah.
I highly recommend people read that. But, there's sort of two discussions. There's the east side of the state and the west side of the state. But if you want to shortchange it or shorten, the answer is we really aren't going to have a water crisis. We don't have a water crisis. We have some water problems that are being worked out, and we're kind of getting that solved, and I think we're going to be in a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the case in a lot of different parts of the world, obviously, certainly different parts of the country. So it's just being prudent with the resources that we have,
Absolutely.
being responsible and continuing to develop that intelligence and how we allocate that resource.
Absolutely. Yep.
So if you're thinking about lifestyle in Arizona right now, what are some things that really stand out for you and your family that you really appreciate about living here?
Well, a couple of things is as somebody who has to drive around a lot as a realtor, right?
Yeah.
We're driving from every corner of the valley. I really do appreciate the infrastructure and the planning that's gone on. Even though you've got several cities, there's sort of kind of a unified and a cooperative aspect to our cities, and we're very much built on a grid system. And when you do go from city to city, there's a little bit of variation, but pretty much if you get caught off of a freeway, you could hop on any north-south bound and get north or south.
Right.
You don't have a lot of wiggle or loss. Sometimes there's a couple of places, but it's really well planned. Our freeways are well planned. They're continuing to build more freeways. So I think that when that infrastructure and that grid is built, it kind of makes for housing to be better, commercial to be better. All of those things. I think that's one of the big aspects of building a good place.
I agree with you, and one of the things that I appreciate about how the infrastructure has been built out in the valley, particularly the road system and the freeway system, is they have done a good job, I believe, in anticipating the growth.
Yes.
Whereas if you get to other cities, and particularly places like the East Coast, which there's places I love on the East Coast, but those cities and those metro areas were developed hundreds of years ago a lot of times.
Right.
So they don't have the room or the space or they, there wasn't the foresight of that time of how big a population might grow in a specific area.
Right.
So you're really limited. And when I travel around the country, it seems like a lot of places I go to are more in reactive mode for that, where I feel like Arizona and the Phoenix metro area has done a pretty good job of anticipating that. And I think this is one of the easiest cities to navigate.
Yeah, I agree.
And least miserable traffic situations of a big city of anywhere you go. I mean, there's a little bit of traffic, but by and large, it flows pretty well here.
You can predict when there's some harder traffic to deal with.
Predictable.
But yeah, when I compare the other surrounding big cities, not to diss on them too much, but I don't enjoy driving through Denver. I don't enjoy driving around Dallas or Houston.
Yeah.
And even Salt Lake sometimes can be a bit interesting. So just when I go to these places and I think about, oh man, the driving here, the drivers are so different, it's all about the infrastructure. So I'm really proud of what we've done here from that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that most people don't know, if they're not experienced with Arizona, because I didn't know this, I moved here 28 years ago now. I had no idea the geographic diversity that existed in this state.
Yes.
And how close we are to the mountains, how many lakes there are, the different climates that exist, how much snow we get up in the San Francisco peaks.
Yes.
And the White Mountains. And so I just think that that's really amazing in terms of lifestyle. A lot of people know Arizona is like a golf mecca and sunshine and desert, but there's so much more to offer in this state. So for raising a family here or thinking about retiring here or just making a move because you have a new opportunity in your professional career, it's an amazing place to live.
It really is. The access to like those things you're talking about. I mean, it's 3 to 4 hours to two great ski areas, Flagstaff and Pinetop area, Show Low area. And we are 4 hours away from what we call the Arizona Beach, which is in Mexico. It's Puerto Penasco, or what we call Rocky Point. It's actually closer than even San Diego. And I would argue that even though San Diego is beautiful, the beach in Puerto Penasco is really fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice. So it's awesome to have all those resources close by.
Absolutely. I would not go hiking in the desert in the summer at all, by the way.
Not recommended.
But we have it's 3 to 4 months, of hot weather. Compare that to going to Minnesota. It's probably 6 months of freezing cold weather.
Yeah.
So I'll take this over that.
For sure. And the thing that's interesting too, even in the summer, like I walk almost every morning. When I went out to walk this morning, it was like 72 degrees.
Yeah.
So there's such a big swing from the peak temperatures, and that's what everybody talks about.
Yes.
Is the peak temperature in Arizona in the summer, which is probably going to hit 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's when it's going to max out. But we get a 30, 35 degree swing overnight.
Yep.
So if you think about a 105 degree day in the desert, it's still 70 degrees overnight, which is really pleasant.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people who adjust their life and their day around that. I know people who kind of don't work or avoid being out at that time. And you at nighttime here in Arizona, that's when you see a lot of construction happening. They'll bring the road crews out and they'll do overnight shifts because it's more manageable.
Yeah.
And so it
makes it more efficient for travel.
It makes it more, and that too, absolutely. Yeah. So that contributes to our traffic control as well. So that's a great aspect for sure. Eric, one of the other things that I like about Arizona, the infrastructure and making this place great, is that we've got a couple of large city centers, right? Phoenix is what we always talk about. That's the Phoenix metro area, and there's a great downtown area there. There's some great stuff, but we also have downtown Mesa, downtown Glendale, which is on the west side. We've got Westgate, which is where the Cardinals Stadium is at. We've got downtown Chandler. Did I say downtown Gilbert? These are all like city centers where if you're out in the suburbs, you really have access to just about everything you need. So there isn't a huge need for people to commute 40 miles from a suburb into downtown Phoenix.
Yes.
There are other major metro areas in the country where that's what everybody does.
Yeah.
Right? I think in Chicago, everybody lives in the suburb and they go into the city.
Yeah.
New York is very similar. But here you can stay in your city, your town, whichever it may be, and very much have everything you need. So that makes for a large city feel with a small town reality.
Yeah. That is a great thing about the Valley. So I appreciate that too.
Yeah.
What else do you think somebody should know? If they're thinking about a move to Phoenix, why would they want to live here? What should they consider as they're kind of making their choice?
Swimming pools, swimming pools, swimming pools.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, that's essential equipment this time of year.
Yeah, I think everybody, and we're talking about it because it's summertime, but I think it's like 60 or 70% of homes have pools.
Yeah.
If you don't have a pool, your neighbor probably does.
Yeah.
So
just make friends with your neighbor.
Make friends with your neighbors, and lots of communities have community pools in their HOA, so it's just a little hop skip to the local community. How about you, Eric? Is there anything that you like about Arizona that you think not only is enticing and enjoyable for people to live here, but also supports the idea that, as people are fearful of recession or an economic pullback countrywide, why we are maybe primed to not have that experience that negative drawback?
Well, I think there's a few factors. One is I think there's a very active lifestyle here.
Yeah.
And so people that are active, they're out doing things. Their mental health is usually a lot stronger. And they're thinking in terms of possibility, and they're not usually driven by fear. Now, fear certainly affects all of us in our life in different seasons. We don't know what the future holds. Like, all we know is what we have right now. We know that markets are always going to shift and dynamics are always going to change, and we'll adapt to them. I mean, in the last decade, we've been through some crazy stuff in this world. In the last 2 decades, we've been through some really crazy stuff in this world.
Yes.
And we figured out how to navigate our way through it. So I think that's going to be true here for sure, as it will be in a lot of other parts of the country. The people that have the right mindset and the right approach and are willing to adapt and willing to adjust are going to be just fine.
Yeah.
But what I love about the spirit and the energy here in the Valley of the Sun is people are just more optimistic.
Yeah.
And they're looking for opportunity. I find a lot of collaboration here. I think a lot of people have positive attitudes, and they're looking to help. There's a real sense of community. And when we talk about this metro area growing to 6 million people, it's interesting because I always feel like this has had a small town feel.
Yes.
And the relationships that I have and the connections and a lot of the communities, like you mentioned, that you go into, you're connected to a big city, you're connected to a large metro area, but it really does have a small town feel and that sense of community, and that's one of the things I think I appreciate, and I think anybody that comes to live in Arizona is going to appreciate too.
I agree. There's one other thing kind of related to all this that I think it's important to just let people know is, we talk about real estate and it's location, 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 but then you see these articles out there where they're like, the national real estate market.
Right.
And as soon as I see an article that says national real estate market,
Yeah.
I have red flags.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, the media, the purpose of the media is to grab attention.
Yeah.
It's to get eyeballs, it's to sell stories, it's to sell whatever form of news media and advertising they're selling. So their tendency is always going to be to sensationalize.
Yeah.
Do they maybe have some points of reference? Maybe they do. But just like any blanket advertising or market opinion or anything like that that you see, whether it's in a news format or wherever you're consuming that content, it's too generalized.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about here is people making a personal decision that's best for their lifestyle and their individual needs. And so most of that information is not even relevant.
Right.
So all it's doing is becoming a distraction. So I think the important thing is that if you're thinking of making a move,
Yep.
set up a consultation. Talk
Absolutely.
about your personal priorities, right? Talk about your preferences. Talk about your vision for exactly what you want to create and find for your new lifestyle. And then access the information that's relevant to that. And a professional agent can certainly help do that. As trusted advisors, we take a great priority in that because we feel the responsibility of the role that we're playing.
Right.
We're helping people find their first home and get familiar with the idea of home ownership and all the things that go into that. We're helping people find the home that they're going to raise their family in.
Yep.
We might be helping people build their dream home. We might be helping them find their retirement home. But these are important chapters in people's life story, and you and I know don't take that lightly. We
Right.
feel that responsibility fully, and it's rewarding to be part of that experience with people.
Very rewarding.
But again, that's a personal experience. So the national trends and headlines and all that, they really don't have a lot of relevance to how it impacts each of us as individuals.
Well, I agree. I think there's no such thing as a national market. There's only such thing as local markets. And as you said, in a consultation, we'll be able to help you if that's important to you. We'll be able to help you nail that down and figure out where is the right market here, even in the Valley. We've got a lot of diversity in our markets. We're a big enough city where what's happening on the west side is different than what's happening on the east side or the north or the south.
It is, for sure.
For sure.
So, well, this is a great conversation
Great
today.
conversation.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your input. We appreciate you joining us. We hope you found value in it. Remember, when you're ready to make a move, we're here to help.